Awesome. Well, it's good to see you this morning. I want to welcome all of you here with us at Livewire. I want to welcome our online audience that's with us as well. Those of you that are joining us online, thank you so much for hanging out with us. So we're kicking off a new series called Costumes, and how fitting is it as we draw closer to Halloween, or if you go to like one of the fall fests that churches put on, or if your kids dress up for Halloween and that sort of thing, and they go out trick-or-treating, getting candy and some of that stuff. This series is called Costumes. And so we think about, obviously, Halloween, but maybe we even think about some costume parties that we've been to. Anybody ever been to like a costume party? All right, maybe like a Renaissance party, or if you saw the movie Yes Man, you remember where Jim Carrey and his girlfriend, they went to a friend's house, and they were doing like this Harry Potter marathon, and so everybody was dressing up in Harry Potter costumes and all of that stuff, and we're very familiar with costumes, aren't we? Every single one of us, we could go back to our childhood, and we could think of some of the costumes that we wore as a kid, some of the things that we dressed up in, whether it was going to some type of regular costume party, maybe like a 70s party. Anybody ever been to like a disco party? My wife and I, we love disco, and so if you ever throw a disco party, invite us over. We would love to come dress up back in the 70s and all of that stuff. But costume parties, we're very familiar with this. We're very familiar with putting on costumes and different things of that nature, and being somebody, pretending to be something that we're not, pretending to be either Dracula or pretending to be some type of superhero. So here's what I want to know as we kick off this series, and as we kick off the morning. If you've got your smartphone, if you've got your mobile device there, I want to ask you a question. I want you to text it in. We do this from time to time. If you're a guest with us, there's some interaction from time to time. We love to have some crowd participation. The question is, what is the best costume you have ever worn? And you can go back to your childhood, you can go back to your teenage years, or maybe your adult years, last Halloween or last costume party. What is the best costume you have ever worn? Text that, 239-324-9833. Text that over. What's the best costume? What is the best costume you have ever worn? And there's probably a lot of them. Maybe hard to pick the one that you like the best. Somebody said being myself. That could go both ways. I could either be real good or I could be real bad. Hannah Montana, Wilma from the Flintstones, the devil, a saran-wrapped alien. Let's see, Genie, Batman or Captain America, Mulan. All right, any others? Let's see. Bob Marley, dressing up as Bob Marley. Zombie, all right, just being kind of a zombie. Sarah Palin. Let's see. Perry Edwards. Zach Matthews. So all kinds of different costumes. It's kind of funny that... female pirate. It's kind of funny that, maybe especially around this time, Halloween time, we go over to like the Halloween store. I know sometimes like Christine and I will go over if we're just out shopping, and we'll see the Halloween store and just walk in, and you just see like all of these costumes, like hundreds of costumes, all kinds of different costumes that are there that are just, and some very grotesque and some very cool and all of that stuff. And just, there are so many things that when you go into, if it's a Halloween store, or you go into Party City, you go into some of these places, there's like so many things that we could be. There are so many things that we could act like, and I just remember even going back to being a kid, and I remember just running around in my underoos. Anybody remember underoos? All right, those were superhero underwear, okay? And I remember running around in my superhero underwear, whether it was Spider-Man or something along those lines, and just pretending like, man, I'm Spider-Man, and like I'm the web crawler, and I could spin my webs and all of those things. And you remember being a kid, right? You remember maybe trying to be something like a superhero, but you remember taking the pillowcase off of your pillow and tying it around your neck, and that was your cape, and like, yeah, man, I'm Superman, or I'm Supergirl, and you're flying and all this. Or maybe maybe you took your pillow and it was kind of your shield, you know? I mean, I don't know about you. Maybe you got a bunch of stuff. Maybe you were just like rich and your parents gave you everything. We were poor. All right, we didn't have a lot of stuff, so we had to make up our toys. We had to make our shields. We couldn't go down to Target or Toys R Us or some other toy store and buy the shields that you see now. I mean, have you gone lately? And those of you that have little kids, you know what I'm talking about. You go through the toy section of Target or Walmart or any toy store, and they've got some amazing toys. Like, I wish they had those shields, you know, like the Thor shield or some type of Roman shield, you know, and they've got these swords and they got these cool guns that we didn't have when we were growing up. And I mean, I definitely didn't have, just simply because we didn't have the money to be able to buy a lot of that stuff. And so we had to make up stuff. And so maybe it wasn't even enough to have like the pillowcase. You had to get like the blanket. Remember that? Tie the blanket around your neck, and that was your long cape, and you're just this superhero. You're just, you know, acting out the part. I remember, because I love Bruce Lee so much, and you remember this too, right? Whenever we would watch movies or cartoons, we start acting like the hero that's in the cartoon or the hero that's in the movie. And I would watch Bruce Lee movies, and, you know, hey, I was a black belt in karate, at least in my mind I thought I was. But, you know, just being Bruce Lee, it's like just acting it out, just pretending to be like Bruce Lee. And girls, you remember this, right? You remember the times when you would play dress up, right? And some of you moms right now, you've got little ones, you've got a little daughter or little daughters, and maybe there was a day that you're just wondering, like, where's your daughter at? Like, honey, where are you? Where are you? And then she comes walking out, and she's got your high heels on, she's got your dress that, you know, doesn't fit her whatsoever, and maybe she's thrown on a little lipstick. You know, girls, you played a little dress up. We play a little dress up, and sometimes the boys, if there's a sibling in there, sometimes the boys get involved in it because the older sister puts all the stuff on her little brother, and so then your little brother or your son comes out, and he's looking like a girl and that sort of thing. But the fact of the matter is we are so accustomed to costumes, aren't we? We're so accustomed to acting. We're so accustomed to that whole aspect and that whole idea, which is so much fun. It is a lot of fun to dress up and to act and to be somebody that we're not. But there's also a danger spot to it as well. There's also a danger zone to costumes. There's also a part of it that is not all that healthy, and it's not so much to do with putting on a costume, like going to Party City or going to the Halloween store and buying your costume or making a costume, but it's actually the costumes that maybe we might be wearing inside, that when we express, or that it affects our outward appearance or our outlook, what we say and what we do with our life and kind of those things. So I kind of wonder, like, you know, if we ask ourselves the question, are we living true to ourselves? And that's what this series is about, is costumes. What are maybe some costumes that we might be wearing, or that maybe we don't even realize that we're wearing? Maybe we don't even realize that they're there, and yet it's something that has impacted our life, something that we're wearing, and we're not being true to ourselves. Maybe as a Christian that we're not being true to ourselves. Maybe as a man, or just as a woman, as an individual, that we're not being true to ourselves, that if we investigated a little bit, if we did a little introspection, that we would realize, wow, you know what, I'm wearing a costume. Like, wow, I'm actually pretending. Like, I'm actually acting here. When you read the Gospels, from time to time, you see Jesus everywhere that he went. A lot of times he would share stories. And if you have an older translation of the Bible, you'll see the word parables there. Your newer translations will use the word illustration, because that's precisely what it was. Jesus would tell stories, but he wouldn't just tell stories. He would tell stories that had meaning behind them. They had a purpose behind them. There was something that he wanted to teach through the stories that he told. Or much like we would use the word, we don't really use the word, excuse me, we don't really use the word parables today, but we use the word illustrations. And so much like an illustration where we would describe something, we would talk about something, and that something would have some type of meaning, that something would have some type of purpose to what we're trying to get across. And so Jesus would do this from time to time. And so we're going to pick up along these lines of costumes. We're going to look at a story that Jesus tells. And actually, just before this, he just got done telling a story to his disciples, just got done telling them something pertaining to them. And now he's going to share another story, or he's going to tell another illustration, give another illustration. We pick this up in Luke chapter 18. Verse 9, notice this. Jesus also used this illustration. Again, he just shared one previous to this with his disciples. Now he's sharing another one. Jesus also used this illustration with some who were sure that God approved of them while they looked down on everyone else. So Jesus is kind of examining his crowd, and he kind of gets the idea. He sees people that are in the crowd, and they're just totally confident in themselves. They're just totally confident that they do everything right. They're just totally confident that that they do everything right, that they've never done anything wrong, and that they have a perfect life. And they're looking down on everybody else's life and seeing everybody else that's imperfect. They see themselves as absolutely perfect, and they're looking at everybody else, and they see all the wrongs, and they see all the flaws, and they see all the marks and all the mistakes in every other person. And this is what Jesus is noticing. He's noticing that this is his crowd. And so he's getting ready to share an illustration, as we'll look at in just a moment. He's getting ready to share this illustration with some who just think that, hey, man, they are God's gift to the world. And not only God's gift to the world, they are God's gift to the human race, because they are absolutely perfect, is what they see in themselves. They are absolutely perfect. They've never done anything wrong. They've never made any mistakes, but man, they can pull out all the mistakes that everybody else has made. Have you ever met somebody like that? Anybody ever met somebody like that? Have you ever been around that person that they always have to one-up you? They always have to be better than you are. They always have to be better than I am. It's like you do something and I do something, and then you're just like, oh, well, I can do that better. Oh, well, watch me. I can do that even better. I can do that better than you can. Or those people that, again, they just think that they've got everything in order. Everything is absolutely perfect in their life. Everything is absolutely great in their life. They never make a mistake. They never go through bad times. I mean, have you ever met somebody like that? Because in all reality, they're pretending. They're pretending. They've got a costume on, whether they realize it or not. They've got a costume on that says, hey, you know what? My life is perfect, when it's really not. And here's I'm going to make this statement that's going to come on the screen. And I want you to hang tight to hold on to this statement, because it is kind of blunt. But Christians are repulsed by an unchurched person's imperfect lifestyle. A lot of Christians are repulsed by an unchurched person's imperfect lifestyle. And you know what, friends? That is absolutely unfair. And I'll tell you one of the main reasons that is unfair is because we have so many Christians that walk around kind of like Jesus is observing the crowd, and he sees that there are people that are out there that they just think, again, man, I can't do anything wrong. I am perfect. I am absolutely right in everything that I do. I'm just, I'm pure, I'm holy. I mean, there is nobody better than I am. Jesus is observing this in the crowd, and he's getting ready to share this story. And we have a lot of people, a lot of Christians that are walking around thinking that, pretending like their life is perfect. And so in their pretending that their life is perfect, then they think that gives them the right, or they think because their life is perfect, that they think it is, because they think their life is perfect, that they can point out everybody else's flaws and everybody else's mistakes and everybody else's failures and all the things that they do wrong. They can look down on everybody else. And the reality is, friends, listen, if you're a Christian this morning, and if this is something you believe, that is absolutely unfair. And that is absolutely not the very heart of Jesus Christ, or the very heart of God. That is not how God looks at people. And that's not how we should look at people. Because the reality is this, yeah, we could see flaws in other people. I mean, you could see flaws in me. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm not going to try to hide it. You'll see flaws. If you hang around me long enough, you'll see flaws in my life. you'll see where I'm trying to grow up and where I'm trying to develop and where I'm trying to allow God's influence in my life. You'll see where I'm messing it up. You'll see that if you hang around me long enough. And the fact of the matter is, if we would understand that our lives are not perfect, then we can look at other people's flaws and look at other people's mistakes, look at what other people are wrestling with and dealing with, and we're not going to judge them for it. In fact, Jesus had some very strong words one time when he said, "Judge not, or you will be judged." And with what measure I judge somebody, that's the measure that it's going to come back to me. In the measure that I judge somebody and I say, hey, you know, you've messed up, or you do this wrong, or you do that wrong, then in the same way, I'm going to be judged. And so Christians, this is unfair if this is something that we hold on to or something that we believe in. Now, another statement is this, is that the unchurched are repulsed by Christians pretending to have a perfect lifestyle. And honestly, I think this is absolutely fair. Because I think that there are a lot of Christians that are pretending like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm perfect. You need to get your life in order. You need to get your life right. What's wrong with you? What's your problem, man? Why are you doing that with your life? Don't you know that that's killing you? Don't you know that that's destroying your life? Don't you know you're messing your life up? Can't you get it right? Can't you have a perfect marriage like I have? You ever been around somebody like that? Can't you have a perfect relationship like I have? Can't you have your finances in order like I do? See, we have to understand something. And especially those of us that are Christians, those of us that do believe in God, and those of us that have surrendered our life to Jesus Christ, there was a time, remember? There was a time when we weren't surrendered to God. There was a time when we were walking away from God. And maybe that was before we gave our lives to God, or maybe it was even in a moment where we were already a Christian, but we walked away from God. But the reality is this, is that there was a time that we didn't really know God. There was a time we didn't really know His Word. There was a time we didn't know the difference between right and wrong and what's absolutely good, or even the very best life that God has for us. We didn't know the difference between that and just everyday, ordinary life. We didn't know. We didn't understand those things. We hadn't come to that revelation, that understanding of those things. But yet, the longer we're a Christian, here's the danger. The longer that we've been a Christ follower, the longer that we've been a Christian, the danger is we could become more religious, and in becoming more religious, we can become critical of the people that are around us. And we forget when we wrestled. And the fact of the matter is, we still wrestle. But we forget when we had that lifestyle. We forget when that thing had a hold on our life. But we've been a Christian a long time, and then we see people that, you know, they're wrestling with it. We're like, man, why don't you get your act together? Don't you know that's messing up your life? Man, you're so stupid. And we're passing judgment, and we forget that there was a time where we did some of those same things, those of us that are Christians. There was a time that we were trapped. There was a time that we believed some wrong theology or wrong ideologies, that we had some misinformation. There was a time. And aren't you, again, those of us that are Christian, aren't you glad that not everybody judged you as far as before you were a Christian? And I'm sure there were people that judged me, and I'm sure there were people that judged you before you were a Christian, but aren't you glad there was somebody that wrapped their arms around you? Aren't you glad that there was somebody that loved you? Aren't you glad that there was somebody that didn't judge you but said, hey, you know what? I just want to show you something, and maybe this would help. Somebody that just loved you for who you are, somebody that just still built that relationship, that friendship with you, and just got to know you as a person. And little by little, you maybe saw something different inside of them, and maybe you questioned it one day, like, what is it that you have? And they were able to share Jesus with you, and maybe that was the defining moment in your life. Maybe that changed the trajectory of your life forever. And yet, if we as Christians, if we take that position like everything is absolutely perfect in our life, and we see everybody else's life as imperfect, and we start judging them, that's not the right thing to do. That's not who we are. That's not who we are as Christians. That's not who Christ is. That's not what Christ was like. So Jesus is examining the crowd, and he's kind of seeing this. He's kind of seeing these people that just have this high-mindedness about them, that they're not humble. They're actually honoring themselves. They're actually lifting up themselves, and they have this pious attitude about them, and they just see themselves as having everything going on perfect, and they see all the flaws of everybody else, and they start judging. Now notice what happens here. Jesus continues on with the story. Jesus said, 2 men went into the temple courtyard to pray. Now, this is very similar to people that would usually, your churches in any city or in any neighborhood, usually they're open during the week and people can come in, they can pray, and it's just kind of a customary thing that people might do. And they did the same thing back then. In fact, when Solomon was the king many years back, Solomon built the temple unto God. And when he dedicated it to God, he said, God, when people pray, when people come to this temple and they pray, or they pray towards this temple, your place, your building, your facility, your house, God, would you hear their prayers? And so it just became customary. It just became a regular thing that the people would go to the temple to see God's face, to go to God for help and for guidance and assistance. And so Jesus tells a story. Here's 2 men. They went into the temple courtyard to pray. Out in the courtyard, and they're going to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other was a tax collector. So you got a Pharisee, you've got a tax collector. Now, notice, the Pharisee stood up and prayed, God, I thank you. Now, let me just ask you something. If for those of you that know maybe a little bit something about the Pharisees, what do you think that the Pharisee is getting ready to thank God for? And maybe you've heard the story before, and so you kind of have an idea. Like, what would you guess that this Pharisee is going to thank God for? Because there's these 2 men, one of them's a Pharisee, one of them's a tax collector, and this Pharisee comes up and he's like, God, I just thank you for. What's he going to thank God for? Let's see. God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. The first thing that comes to this Pharisee's mind, like I think of, when I think of giving thanks, a lot of times when I go to pray, I go to God and I'm just like, God, I just thank you for you. I thank you for your grace, God, because I need it. I thank you for your mercy. I thank you for your goodness in my life. But the first thing that this Pharisee does is he says, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. You know, I see other people walking around, and I see all their flaws. I see all their mistakes. And God, I just thank you that I'm not like them. He's like, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. I'm not a robber. I'm not taking something that's not mine. I'm not stealing from people. God, I thank you that I'm not a dishonest person. I thank you, God, that I'm not being dishonest with people. I'm not being dishonest in my business. God, I thank you. I'm not like other people. I haven't committed adultery. I'm not running around on my wife. I'm not answering booty calls. I'm not doing any of that stuff. God, that's not me. I'm not doing that, God. I thank you that I'm not like other people. I'm not even like this tax collector. So he's praying, and he notices the tax collector. And he says, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. And Lord, I can think of a whole bunch of people. And God, they are just bad news. And God, I thank you that I'm not like them. And speaking of, God, I thank you I'm not like this tax collector. And the reason that this Pharisee pointed out the tax collector is because the tax collectors were hated because they were Jews that were working for the Romans. They were collecting the taxes or money from the Jews to give to the Romans. Now, it was just a job. They were doing a job just like anybody else was doing a job. But for their Jewish counterparts, they're like, you're working for the enemy. You're working for the Romans. You're working for the nation that is, or the nation that is ruling over us, You're working for them. And so they were hated. And so that's why this Pharisee in this story, Jesus is telling a story, and the Pharisee points out a tax collector because that's probably, you've got like sinners that are all the way down here, and right next to sinners are tax collectors to the Jews at that time. We're tax collectors. And so that's the thing that comes to this guy's mind is, I think I'm not like this tax collector. So notice that this Pharisee essentially what this Pharisee is saying is, God, look at me. Look at how good I am. And look how good I live life. Look how good my words are. Look how good my actions are. Look how everything in my life is just absolutely good. There are no flaws. God, just check me. I mean, look at me, God. You know? I'm just absolutely perfect. There is nothing wrong in my life. There is nothing that I can do wrong, God. I'm not like other people. And it's so funny how in our lives that we will see that we are doing pretty good. And the reason why we will see that we're doing pretty good is because we'll judge ourselves or compare ourselves to somebody that's doing worse than us, and we'll say, oh, well, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Instead of putting ourselves up against Christ, and then we realize, oh, I got some work to do. I got some work that needs to go on in my attitude. I got some work that needs to go on in my life. But here's this Pharisee, and he's just thanking God. God, I just thank you. I am, I'm God's gift. I am your gift to humanity. I realize that now, God. I realize I am not like any. These people are actually aliens, God. I don't know what's going on in their life, but I thank you that I am the gift to these people to show them perfection. That's me. That's what this Pharisee, that's his attitude. Now, the tax collector, all right, so you got the Pharisee, he gets before God and he's praying, God, I thank you. I'm not like these people. Everything's perfect in my life. And then it goes on. But the tax collector was standing at a distance. The tax collector, they're on the outskirts of the temple there or in the courtyard. And so I can kind of get a picture of this, right? There's a gate around the temple, and the tax collector walks through the gate, but he doesn't even go any further. He's just like, man, I don't even deserve to be here. I don't even deserve to be right here, right now. He doesn't even go all the way. He's standing at a distance from the temple, God's house. And notice it says he wouldn't even look up to heaven. You remember being a kid, or those of you that have little ones, and they do something wrong, they do something really bad, and you call them over, and they can't even look up at you, right? They're just kind of looking down and just kind of, and maybe tears are coming down, or you just see this sad look, but they just can't look up at you, and you say, look at me, and they just look for a moment, they got to put their head down. That's what this tax collector is doing. He can't even look at God. He can't even look up to God because he realizes what's in his life. He realizes what's going on. He realizes his flaws. He realizes his mistakes. He realizes his imperfection, and he's not going to pretend about it. He's not going to fake. He's not going to try to pull the wool over God's eyes. He's not going to try to put a costume on. He knows who he is. He knows what he's done, and so this tax collector is right there, and he's at a distance away, and he can't even look at God. And then it goes on, it says, instead, he became very upset. Now, this word upset is not that he was angry, like angry at God. Actually, what this means, it means to beat the chest. And you ever been around somebody, and I'm sure every single one of us have probably done this before, where you are just so upset or so distraught about something that you did. You're just sitting on the bed, and maybe mom or dad is right there, and you're just totally messed up about it. You're just crying, and you did something wrong. You did something bad. You did something hurtful, and you're just messed up inside about it. That's what this tax collector is feeling. This tax collector is so distraught by what he did or what's going on in his life or some addiction that he's trapped in. He's so distraught. And so get the picture of this tax collector. He's at a distance from the temple, God's house. He knows there is no way I should even come near God's house. I'm just going to come right here. And God, I just can't even look at you because I know what I've done. I know my mistakes. I know my imperfection. And I'm so distraught about it. Now here's what I want you to see. Notice this. Instead, he became very upset, or he was very distraught. And he said, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. He said, God, I need your mercy. I know I've made mistakes. I'm not going to try to hide it. I'm not going to try to cover it up. I'm not going to try to pretend like it's not there. God, I know I've made mistakes. God, would you would you extend your mercy to me? God, would you extend your grace to me? God, would you extend to me your forgiveness? Now, Jesus is telling this story, right? Talking about the Pharisee, just thinks he's got it all together, he's perfect. And here's the tax collector, and he knows he's anything but perfect. Notice what Jesus says. You got the two guys, right? Notice what Jesus says. I can guarantee that this tax collector went home with God's approval. You remember when it started out, Jesus was observing the crowd, and he said that there were some that were there that were confident that they had God's approval. And yet we see Jesus tell this story about a Pharisee that thinks, that knows he's got God's approval, that knows he's God's gift to man. And then next to him, at a distance away, is the tax collector. And this tax collector knows he's everything but God's gift to man. He knows that his lifestyle is imperfect. He knows that he's made mistakes. And what does Jesus say? Jesus says that the one who is actually approved, the one who is actually right in right standing with God, it's the word righteousness. The one that is in right standing with God is the tax collector. The tax collector walked away, and Jesus said, that's the one who's going home with God's approval. He goes on to say, everyone who honors himself will be humble, but the person who humbles himself will be honored. And I think this is something that we have to take to heart, friends, and especially those of us that call ourselves Christians, we have to take this to heart, because if we think that we're just living this perfect lifestyle, newsflash, there is not one of us that is perfect in this room. There is not one of us that is perfect in our city. There is not one of us that's perfect in our state, our nation, or around the world. And friends, that is why we needed Jesus Christ, and why we need Jesus Christ every single day of our lives. Because the fact of the matter is, we are not perfect. We're not perfect, and we're not going to ever be perfect. God is working on us. In fact, I believe that every single one of us that call ourselves Christians, we ought to know inside of our heart, and we ought to profess this everywhere that we go, that we are a work in progress. Every one of us are a work in progress. None of us have finally arrived. None of us are finally here, but every single one of us are a work in progress. Now, something that unchurched people sometimes make the mistake of, or there's kind of a misconception, is that because of the fact that we are Christian, there is a kind of a label attached to that we're supposed to be perfect. So when somebody that doesn't normally go to church, or maybe believe in God, or just maybe they do believe in God, but they're not a Christian, never surrendered their life to Jesus, when they see a Christian mess up or sin, then they think that we're hypocrites. But that's actually a misconception. That's actually not true. Because in all reality, yes, I think us as Christians, in some ways, we've caused the unchurched to believe that, because so many Christians walk around, again, pretending like they're perfect when life isn't perfect. And so I think a lot of that has to do with something that we've, as the body of Christ, as Christians, that we've done ourselves, that we try to put on this facade, put up this facade that everything is perfect in our life, and nothing goes wrong, and we deny all of our troubles and all of our problems. No, everything is great and that sort of thing. We put up this facade, and everybody sees it, especially the unchurched. And one of the things that the unchurched have understood or come to the conclusion is that, well, if we're perfect, we shouldn't sin, and if we sin, we're hypocrites. But the reality is, although Christians, we've got to come to grips with this. Although we've given people that don't believe in God, or that aren't walking with God, we've given them reason to believe that. At the same time, it's also not true, because the fact of the matter is, we're not perfect. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit this morning, I am not perfect. And like I said earlier, you hang around me long enough, and I promise you, I will fail you. It's not because I'm intending to. It's not because I'm planning to. It's because I am a man. I've got a sinful nature, and sometimes I fall short. And Paul made it very clear. Paul said, we all fall short of the glory of God. Paul didn't say, oh, the unchurched fall short of the glory of God. The people that don't believe in God, they fall short of the glory of God. No, Paul said, we all, human beings, we all fall short of the holiness, the greatness, the perfection of God. Every single one of us. In fact, Paul was having this wrestling at one time. He said, the things that I'm not supposed to do, those are the things that I find myself doing. And the things that I know that I'm supposed to do, those are the very things that I'm not doing. And he came to this conclusion. He said, oh, wretched man that I am. Oh, miserable man that I am. Kind of like this tax collector. Coming to the realization of my sin, of my imperfection, of my flaws and my mistakes. Paul, the apostle that wrote most of the New Testament, Paul came to that understanding. Oh, miserable man that I am. Who's going to save me? Who's going to save me from my imperfection, my flaws, my mistakes? And just as he finished that statement, he says, I thank God for Jesus Christ. I thank God that Jesus Christ is the way to salvation, the way to God, the way to living the very best life that God desires for me. Because here's the reality, friends. The reality is that we're not perfect. And that doesn't mean that we're not Christian. Because in all reality, a real Christian isn't one who lives a life of perfection, but a life of progression. Not a life of perfection, but a life where I'm constantly progressing. I'm constantly moving forward. That I come to the realization as a man of God, as a woman of God, as a person that has surrendered their life to Jesus Christ, as a person that has said, Jesus, will you be the Savior and Lord of my life? That I've come to the realization that I am a work in progress. That I come to the realization that God is working in me. In fact, Philippians 2:13, Paul writes this. He says, for God is working in you, work in progress. For God is working in you. What is that? It's not past tense, right? It's not past tense. It's not future tense. It's present. It's right now. God is working in you. That even if you're not a Christian, God is working in you. That God desires the best for your life. And even though you don't acknowledge him, or even if you don't want anything to do with him, or even if you're just like, well, I believe in God, but I'm just not there yet, God is working in you. And those of us that are Christians, God is working in us. It's present tense. It's a work in progress. Again, notice, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power. That word power is ability. Giving you the desire and the ability to do what pleases him. That we are a work in progress. That God isn't done with us. That God isn't going to give up on us. And here's the other thing, even just a side note. God's not going to give up on you. God's not going to give up on me. So let's not give up on ourselves. Yeah, maybe we're wrestling with something right now, but God's not going to give up on you. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up. Don't give up thinking that I can't overcome this. Don't give up thinking that this isn't going to get better. Don't give up, because God is working in your life and God is working in my life. But if we just put on a costume and we just pretend like everything is all right, we're denying the very work that God wants to do in our life. And everybody around us, they know our life isn't perfect, friends, right? They know. People around you could see it. They can see that you're pretending. They could see that you're acting. They could see that I'm acting. They could see that I'm pretending. When in all reality, our attitude should be not that of the Pharisee that thinks that they've got it all together, and so they now have the right to look down on everybody else. Because the fact of the matter is, I have no right to look down on you. Because the moment that I look down on you, the moment that I judge you, I am reminded of my own flaws. I'm reminded of my own imperfection. I'm reminded of my own failures and my own mistakes. And that's why Jesus said, before you go and pull out Before you go and pull out a piece of sawdust out of somebody else's eye, you need to pull out the log that is in your eye. Because I have no business judging somebody else when I got stuff going on in me. I got stuff that's going on that God's working on. But the fact of the matter is, friends, really, Christians, let's stop pretending and let's understand that we have no reason to pretend. We have no reason to put a costume on. But to also come to that revelation and that understanding, that realization that God is working in us, that He's working in our lives, and He won't give up. So there's no reason to pretend, to act, to put on a costume, when all we have to do is just say, God, come to Him just like the tax collector. God, I know my flaws. I know my mistakes. And I don't want to make any excuses. I don't want to pull the wool over your eye. God, I need your grace. I need your mercy. I need your forgiveness. But God, I also want your direction. I want your knowledge, your understanding, your wisdom. I want you to change that within me that's not good and make it good. God, I want you to change within me about my attitude, my words, my actions, my lifestyle, whatever it is that's messing me up, God. I turn it over to you, and I trust that just like Paul said, that you're working in me. You're working in me the desire, the passion, and the ability to do what pleases you and what real life and what this new life that you have for me actually looks like. And God, that's what I want. And so the question that I want to ask us this morning is, how am I pretending? You make that personal just like I've got to make it personal. How am I pretending? Because maybe there's something that we don't even realize that we're doing, and we've put a mask on. And we've had our voice lessons, so to speak, and our acting lessons, and we're playing a part. We're singing a part. We're just performing a part. In all reality, we're just pretending. And we don't need to, friends. Christians, our lives are not perfect. So let's stop pretending they are. And let's stop giving people that are far away from God, that maybe don't even want anything to do with God, simply because Christians walk around like we're perfect when we're not. We're not perfect. We're progressing. We're progressing. We're not perfect. We're works in progress. And maybe you're here this morning and you've never surrendered your life to Jesus, and maybe you just know that inside, you just know that your life, you're just not living your true self. And I can tell you what that is. Because the only thing that separates a Christian from a non-Christian, or a church person from an unchurched person, a believer from an unbeliever, the only thing that separates is actually a person, and that's Jesus Christ. Because I still have sin in my life just like an unchurched person does, or an unbeliever does. God's still working on me, and just like God is working on them. The only difference is I have Jesus. Christians, we have Jesus. And those of you that you just know that you just feel like you're acting or pretending, those of you that don't know God, I can tell you what it is it's Jesus. Jesus can fill that void where you just feel like, I'm just not living to my true potential. I'm not living the life that I believe that I should be living, or that I should have, or that I should be enjoying. God, Jesus Christ, desires that for you, for every single one of us. So close your eyes with me for just a moment. And let me just ask you this. Those of you that are here this morning, maybe you've never surrendered your life to God. And maybe this is the defining moment in your life. Maybe this is your moment and your time. And I want to offer you that opportunity. What it is it's just a simple prayer. Paul said in Romans 10:9-10, if we believe in our heart that God raised Jesus Christ from the dead, and if we say with our mouth, Jesus, you are the Lord of my life, it says you will be saved. That life that God has for you, that new life, and that salvation, forgiveness, grace, and mercy, and His direction, God wants to give you. All you got to do is ask. All you got to do is accept the free gift. And I want to pray with you right where you are. Listen, before I do that, I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to call you up. I'm not going to call you to the front or anything like that. All I want you to do is slip your hand up. Or maybe you're here this morning and you just know you've been away from God. And maybe you know you've been pretending. You've been pretending like everything is all right when it's not. You've been pretending and you're ready to come back to God. Maybe that's you this morning. It's the same simple prayer. Here's all I want to do. With every eye closed, if that's you this morning, you've never surrendered your life to Jesus, you want to do so, or you want to rededicate your life to Jesus, would you just slip your hand up right where you are? Anybody? I want to make sure I see that hand. I see that hand. Anybody else? You say, include me in that prayer, Josh. You could put your hand down after I've seen it. Anybody else? Josh, include me in that prayer. Right where you are, right where you're seated. Just pray this prayer with me. God, right now, I come to you in the name of Jesus. And I believe that you sent Jesus to suffer and die for me so that I could be forgiven of my sin, so that I could be given a new life, a new start. Jesus, right now, I confess you as Savior and Lord of my life. God, give me the life that you have planned for me. God, I ask that your word, the Bible, that you would open it up to me. God, that you would fill me with your Spirit. Jesus, I thank you for your sacrifice, for your perfection in place of my imperfection, for your sacrifice for my sin so that I would be forgiven. God, I thank you for your mercy and your grace and your forgiveness that is new every single morning. God, I thank you for salvation. I thank you for a new start, and I thank you for eternal life. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. God, I thank you for every single person that's here this morning. And God, I know that maybe we realize that we've been wearing a mask. Maybe we realize we've been acting or pretending. But God, right now, we just want to get rid of that. God, right now, we just want to get away from that. We realize we have no reason to pretend. And especially as Christians, that we have no reason to pretend, but that God, we are a work in progress, and we want to allow you to have your work inside of us. We want to allow you to do your work inside of us, working in us both to will and to do for your good pleasure, God. Lord, we thank you for your goodness in our life, your grace, your mercy, your forgiveness. And we thank you for your knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. We thank you, God, that you have a plan and a purpose for our life each and every day, God, and that you will never give up on us. We give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Can we give Jesus praise this morning? Amen.